morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here is your detailed forecast update for April 13th, 2025. A lot to get through today, starting things off with tropical low 29U up or northwest of Western Australia. This system here is expected to become a tropical cyclone momentarily. The Bureau of Meteorology has been calling for this to become a tropical cyclone over the last couple of hours. However, they have backed down on their forecast and now are calling for it to be upgraded on Monday. This system here is not doing as well as we initially expected, despite the favourable conditions that it is in, and for a few reasons. Wind shear has surprisingly picked up overnight, and it is also very close to the WA coastline, so it's having some pretty heavy interactions with the WA coastline right now. But there are two important factors to be taking note of. The system is actually a little bit closer to the WA coastline than we do initially think, especially based off what the Bureau of Meteorology forecast is suggesting. So it's going to have some major ramifications to the long-range forecast in this system here, and it is also likely slightly stronger than what we were expecting as well. You can see winds here coming out of Thornton Island here, 45 kilometres an hour out of the east. They're only beginning to pick up as well, and some heavy rainfall now moving into the Columbaroo, the Kimberley region as well. The rainfall hasn't made it across towards Wyndham or Kununurra just yet. It's just towards the north of Wyndham at this point in time, and some heavy showers have been reported overnight, but rainfall accumulations through the Wyndham area haven't been especially heavy over the last couple of hours. In terms of the future forecast of this system here, we're expecting it to head further towards the offshore areas, especially throughout the course of today, and it will steadily strengthen as well. You can see strengthening is expected to continue through Monday, likely to attain tropical cyclone status through Monday, and you can see, well, probably useless looking at this forecast modelling here, considering the fact that the Eastern Beth is really lowballing their system quite dramatically, and same with the Axis G3 forecast model as well. The GFS is the one that calls this system to get up to kind of a reasonable intensity, and you can see that's expected to happen through Monday and into Tuesday, reaching its peak intensity through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning as likely a high-end Category 2 or low-end Category 3 strength system. That is in line with what the Bureau of Meteorology forecast is suggesting as well. It's then expected to get itself offshore out towards Rowley Shoals before it makes a U-turn around Thursday or Friday before it heads back towards the WA coastline and weakens substantially. It's likely to have some pretty significant interactions with wind shear through Thursday and Friday, and whilst it is expected to approach the coastline somewhere between Port Hedland up to about Derby or Broome, it will be a much weaker system once it gets itself down towards the coastline. So this system here, not really much to be worrying about, and it has been a decreasing threat over the last couple of days, especially as we've seen this forecast be very consistent, where we've got this weakening system coming into the WA coastline now. We're now starting to hone in on a location somewhere between Karratha up to about Broome, or Port Hedland up to about Broome at this point in time. Very remote part of Western Australia, and even if a weak tropical cyclone goes through that location, it's nothing to be worrying about at all. Not only are they built for that, especially at this time of the year, but these systems here, generally speaking, not that much of a concern when they're battered by wind shear and at a much weaker intensity coming into the coastline. Major forecast modelling is a little bit different between some of the forecast models. You can see still that hairpin turn happening on Thursday, but the Eastern Beth calling for the system to remain much further north and much further out to sea before it gets dragged off by a bit of a westerly flow later on into the forecast period. The Icon forecast model is a bit of a similar story to the Eastern Beth. It kind of calls for it to be a little bit further out to sea and a little bit further north before that U-turn happens somewhere and takes it in for a landfall around sort of the Mitchell Plateau or the somewhere along the Kimberley coastline, to be frank, around sort of Saturday or Sunday. It's still just a very difficult forecast right now, and there is a lot of detail in this forecast to be unpacking, and you can see between other major forecast models such as the Axis G3, which is calling for that landfall to happen somewhere in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, and then the tropical cyclone, like I said, making that U-turn on Thursday, and then another U-turn on Saturday in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, and heading back out towards the ocean through Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So in short, what we know from the forecast is that a bit of a steering current is expected to come through on Thursday, and no matter where the system is, we're expecting the system to get dragged down towards the south or the southeast on Thursday, and that is going to happen for about 2 or 2.5 days. Now, if this system gets itself over land within that time, so if it does remain close to the coastline throughout the next couple of days, it will make a landfall sometime Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, somewhere between, like I said, Port Hedland up towards Koori Bay or Broome, that sort of area, or that general area. That landfall will happen sometime around Saturday or Sunday. If it is close enough to the coastline, it'll be a much weaker tropical cyclone, and again, not really something worth worrying about, with just a couple of 100 millimetres of rainfall coming through through in a quick period of time, and some gusty winds here and there. Now, if this system does make that U-turn a lot further out to sea, so if it's closer to Indonesia than it is to Australia, it will still make that U-turn and track towards the WA coastline, but then around Saturday or Sunday it'll get pushed back out to sea. So it's going to take a really oddball track by the looks of things if it does remain further out to sea. The Bureau of Meteorology calling for that U-turn to happen on Thursday as well in their long-range forecast, and it will likely approach the WA coastline as a Category 3 strength tropical cyclone. However, the Bureau of Meteorology is calling for weakening in the longer-range forecast, and that's most likely because of wind shear at this point in time. Even though the forecast models are a little bit uncertain on the factors that are at play for this tropical cyclone, they know that this system, if it does approach the WA coastline, is going to be a much weaker system as a result of wind shear, and it's going to happen somewhere between Port Hedland and Broome. An interesting one this is a very difficult storm to forecast. If it does get named, it's going to become Tropical Cyclone Errol. It looks like it's reasonably close to it, but it is still a bit of a convective blob here towards the north of Colombaroo, and it does still have a little bit of organisation and intensification still to go. When we see gale force winds around the Trofton Island sort of area, then we will definitely have the reason to upgrade this into a full-blown tropical cyclone. Let's head over to the Gulf of Carpentaria now, where tropical low activity is now beginning to develop just towards the northeast of Groote Island, just towards the east of Nullarbor here. This system is beginning to spin itself up a little bit. I mean, spin itself up is definitely a bit of a stretch, but you can see over the last 6 hours, plenty of convection. Some heavy showers and thunderstorms have been off the northeast corner of the Northern Territory, and they have been causing some heavy downpours and deluges across the northeastern corner of the Northern Territory as well. These thunderstorms are consistent with what we were looking at yesterday, and you can see on the forecast modelling and also on the lower level cloud activity here, there is some very slow and some very broad rotation at this point in time. You really need to know what you're looking for here, so I'm not going to go too far into detail, but take my word for it, it is there, and we are still seeing that broad low level rotation, which is a sign of a tropical low in the making. Let's take a look at this one's forecast. It is another interesting system, that's for sure. Throughout the next couple of days, we're expecting this low pressure system to head further towards the northeast, which means we're going to see some breaks in the rainfall for the northeast of the Northern Territory, and especially through Monday and Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms will be a little bit more kind of fewer and further between. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're expecting this low pressure system begin its development into a tropical low, and then later through Wednesday and Thursday, a likely run for tropical cyclone status and some heavy rainfall again developing across Cape Wessel and Nullarbor and the northeastern corner of New South Wales just in general. Plenty of moisture also streaming ashore in from the Coral Sea, so as such, we're expecting some heavy falls across extreme far northern Queensland, north of Lockhart River, and moderate heavy falls possible pretty much all around the Gulf country at this point in time, except for the extreme southeastern corner of the Gulf of Carpentaria, Mornington Island, Burketown and Corumba, those sort of locations. But through Wednesday and Thursday, strengthening expected here, and it does look like it does have a shot at becoming a weak tropical cyclone through Thursday and Friday before it gets dragged down towards the southeast, and we see that landfall on the southeastern part of the Gulf of Carpentaria coastline through the Mornington Island sort of area. It looks like this system gets absolutely ripped apart by wind shear later on into the forecast period, which is typical for this time of the year. The Gulf of Carpentaria into late April is generally speaking a very unfavourable place for tropical cyclones to develop. When it is favourable, it can be very favourable indeed, but right now it is looking quite unfavourable for this tropical cyclone to develop, and if it does take shape and make a run at tropical cyclone status, it will be a short-lived system through Thursday, Friday and Saturday before it gets ripped apart by what looks like some pretty nasty wind shear. Nonetheless, heavy rainfall expected throughout the remainder of this weekend across the northeast of the Northern Territory, and heavy rainfall expected to continue again through Wednesday, Thursday and Friday for the northeast of the Northern Territory. Heavy rainfall expected through Thursday and Friday across parts of the west coast of the Cape York Peninsula, and some heavy rainfall also expected around the Mornington Island area through Friday and in towards Saturday next week. And heavy rainfall accumulations are not being ruled out over the next 10 days as well, just in general. Around northwestern Queensland, rather, you can see some pretty significant rainfall accumulations here on this 10-day rainfall forecast. Starting things off over in extreme far northern Queensland, between 40 to about 150 millimetres can be expected over the next 10 days, depending on where you are for Weipa, Lockhart River, up towards Thursdale, and it's going to be on the higher side of that as well. I reckon can expect up around that 40 to 50 millimetre mark, and then rainfall accumulations between 80 to 120 millimetres on the southeastern corner of the Gulf of Carpentaria, so including Corumba, Burketown, anywhere up to about 200 millimetres possible for those locations. And depending on what showers and thunderstorms develop over the next couple of days on Mornington Island, and then what rainfall happens through Wednesday, Thursday and Friday with the tropical low's approach to Mornington Island, we'll see some pretty significant falls along the Mornington Island area, potentially up around that 300 or 400 millimetre mark, which would be a very helpful deluge for them over there. Good falls on the Carpentaria coastline in the Northern Territory as well, between 20 and 80 millimetres expected there. Burralula, Robinson River, these are desert locations, so any rainfall is helpful there, and it looks like some good falls are on the cards. Northeast Northern Territory between 100 out to about 500 millimetres can be expected, and I'm not writing off isolated accumulations up to 750 millimetres somewhere along Cape Westall or Nullarbor in that general area. That's a big feat for this tropical low to be producing, but with the amount of convection that's blowing up around it right now, if we get to these thunderstorms that just sit over some locations for a couple of hours straight for days and days and days on end, we could be seeing some very significant accumulations. That's in saying that widespread falls between 200 millimetres are going to be the norm, but we won't be writing off widespread fall or isolated falls around that 500 millimetre mark later on into the forecast period when this system does develop into a tropical cyclone. The conditions are very favourable for a very convectively active system, just considering the warm sea temperatures at this point in time, so expect plenty of thunderstorms around this system here. This will become the first tropical cyclone in the Gulf of Carpentaria this season as well, very late on in the season as well for a tropical cyclone. And then much later on into the forecast period, we might see a tropical low develop in the northern extremities of the Coral Sea. We have had some rumbles of activity on it happening between the 20th out to about the 25th of April. You can see the GFS is somewhat on board with it. It's not unusual for something to develop at this point in time at this, much later on into the forecast period for the Coral Sea, especially at this time of the year. It's completely unusual, and again, like we've been talking about for the last couple of months, rainfall can continue in towards June up in far north Queensland, so it's not absolutely unheard of, but certainly is quite a rare case to see a tropical low / tropical cyclone develop around the 27th of April or later than that, and that is why this system here is highly unlikely. ECMWF sort of on board with it, the GFS is also sort of on board with it at this point in time, but you really got to stretch the forecast to be able to make a tropical cyclone question here for far north Queensland. So again, absolutely nothing worth worrying about, but it is an interesting factor on the forecast, and models have been saying that this is a possibility for about 4 or 5 days or so, so it is certainly something to be keeping in the back of your head at this point in time, but absolutely do not panic or prepare for this system whatsoever. Pulling it back to today, up in far north Queensland, some showers coming through for the Cassowary coast. Some healthy accumulations have been reported, and you can see some strong winds also out of the southeast. You can see out towards Arlington Reef, 43 kilometres an hour, quite stronger, or a little bit stronger out towards Flinders Reef, approaching 50 kilometres an hour, and then even down towards Lucinda Point and Hinchbrook Island, 40 to 45 kilometres an hour down there. So it's gusty, it's showery, it is miserable up in far north Queensland. Typical weather for this time of the year, and those showers are expected to continue throughout the remainder of today and even pick up a little bit as well. You can see on the convective forecast models there will be some isolated heavier bands of rainfall moving up into far north Queensland, especially through this afternoon into the Daintree rainforest. We could be seeing some heavier falls through there. Rainfall clearing for the Cassowary coast by the looks of things throughout this evening, and then the same deal later tonight for the Daintree rainforest, and a return to fine weather for the working week up in far north Queensland, or not fine weather but clearer weather for far north Queensland for next working week. Showers will continue through Monday and Tuesday as well, but they won't be as heavy as what they are this weekend. A couple of showers will be heavy on Tuesday night, but clearing through Wednesday morning, and then it's dry Thursday, Friday, and then out towards Saturday before the rainfall pipes up again, depending on the movement and the track of the tropical low up here. Generally speaking, when we do have that tropical low situation in the Gulf of Carpentaria, we can see some pretty extreme rainfall accumulations for North Queensland. Now, none of the major forecast models are pointing for that right now. If I was to make a forecast based purely off precedents, I'd be saying a pretty alarming forecast for far North Queensland, but I'm not going to do that considering all the forecast models are very reserved for the amount of rainfall, with just 100 or so millimetres expected on the cards for the wettest of locations, even for far North Queensland's Cassowary coast or the Daintree rainforest through later this coming work week and into next weekend as a result of the developing tropical low in the Gulf of Carpentaria. So rainfall is likely to be a lot lighter than normal up there. Looks like they're now heading into their dry season, and the real rainfall is beginning to clear off up there. Rainfall could return much later on into the forecast period between the 25th of April out to about the 30th of April, but again, a little bit of a wild card there and highly dependent on tropical activity over in the Coral Sea. A little bit too early to tell for sure, but you can see, and I'm not going to go too far into detail on rainfall accumulations here, but there's nothing really significant to be talking about here over the next 14 days. Just a couple of heavier drops around the Cassowary coast from rainfall coming throughout the remainder of today and into tomorrow, and then again Tuesday night, and some heavier drops around the Daintree rainforest, but apart from that, showers looking light for the most part. Mackay last night picked up a pretty healthy deluge, that's for sure, at about 10, or no, it's probably about midnight my time, it was about 10 o'clock, some good showers streaming through there. Showers now, though, clearing out of the Whitsundays area, and you can see just a few speckled drops of rainfall through there, so don't expect too much more in the way of significant rainfall accumulations over in the Whitsundays, but it was definitely a healthy deluge, and people saying that it was like a severe thunderstorm. So again, these showers, they can be underestimated at times, so if you do see showers coming your way, it's probably for the best to make yourself get some inside work done or something like that. That's definitely overkill for most people, but when you do get some heavier showers coming through, it can be dangerous to be on the roads, and it certainly can be quite unpleasant, not so much dangerous to be outside. So again, enjoy the indoor weather when the showers come through, because you're going to have plenty of time to enjoy the outdoor weather as the dry season approaches. Southeast Queensland, northeast New South Wales, showers still streaming through there, as you can see from that easterly flow driven by that high pressure ridge, and showers as far south as Newcastle. There's some heavier falls being reported down there, and you can actually see just a few isolated heavier showers coming through along the coastline right now. Sometimes you'd be surprised at what rainfall can be brought through in some of these showers here. They don't look like they're going to drop much, but for 2 or 3 minutes it can absolutely pour and pour and pour and pour and pour, and you can be left with some pretty big puddles, that's for sure. So again, make sure you are ready for some pretty significant rainfall. I wouldn't be making picnic plans today, that's for sure, across the northeast of New South Wales, and the same deal for the southeast of Queensland. There should be plenty of time next week to be doing something like that. It looks like the rainfall will pipe up again much later on into the forecast period, but again, it is still just a little bit too early to tell at this point in time. But you can see throughout the remainder of next week, especially after about Tuesday, rainfall accumulation is looking a lot lighter across the southeast of Queensland and the northeast of New South Wales. Rainfall accumulations there shouldn't be anything serious. In stark contrast to the low pressure mess that we're expecting over in New Zealand, it's looking like a pretty wet week over in the Tasman Sea. Plenty of low pressure to be talking about out there, and some pretty strong low pressure systems as well. And I reckon by Wednesday or Thursday, probably not storm of the year, but certainly one that's going to resemble storm of the year, will be out in the Tasman Sea, and this is going to be something very much worth watching, that's for sure. Even though it's not going to impact Australia pretty much in the slightest, it will bring some cool temperatures to New South Wales and Victoria, but apart from that, showers and thunderstorms not expected here. Some really significant weather is expected to unfold over in New Zealand, and you can see just not storm of the century, but this is really significant stuff here with some significant wind gusts, heavy rainfall, and it's definitely going to resemble a strong east coast low, that's for sure. There's some pretty significant forecast model support at this point in time. I mean, just have a look at the thing over in the Tasman Sea. So New Zealand, buckle up, especially along the North Island, beginning Wednesday, continuing through Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Going to be interesting, that's for sure. This system here, very strong indeed, and certainly something worth keeping very close tabs on at this point in time. Unfortunately, South Australia, Victoria, Tasmania, those locations, desperate for me to have something to talk about for them, especially on the rainfall front. There's nothing really worth talking about or mentioning. A couple of drops of rainfall possible here and there around South Australia or Victoria over the next 14 days, but again, they're few and far between. Showers and thunderstorms across the southwest of WA as well, not really apparent until we get out towards next week. We could be seeing some more showers and thunderstorms develop through, I believe it's tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some showers developing later on tonight, with some good storms across the southwest capes later on tonight, some severe storms possible here and there, and some really good storms also expected out into the wheat belt as well in the southern parts of the goldfields. This is certainly something worth keeping a very close eye on, that's for sure. This is going to be a significant thunderstorm outbreak over in the goldfields and the wheat belt, probably more significant than we saw last weekend. And let me tell you, I'm looking forward for this to be done. It should clear for the Perth metro area after a couple of showers on Monday morning, with a few drops of rainfall expected in the gauge by Monday evening. It should clear by around Monday evening, Monday night for the southwest capes, and it cannot clear soon enough because the humidity, it is killing me right now. It is so humid, and I am not loving it at all, that's for sure. So yes, these thunderstorms and certainly some good rainfall expected over into the goldfields region as well, especially into the western part of the goldfields. So Coolgardie probably about as far towards the east as you're going to get some of the significant rainfall, but Norseman, Salmon Gums, Esperance, even out towards Southern Cross and some of the other locations out in the wheat belt through here, very remote parts of the wheat belt, but some good falls are possible for those locations. So certainly again, something worth keeping close tabs on at this point in time, especially if you're a farmer out there. Get excited for some of this rainfall because it is looking very healthy indeed. Taking a look at the current picture, you can see some lines of showers now beginning to develop. I mean, look at the line here that's developing, stretching for about 700 kilometres between Esperance, through Ravensthorpe, Hyde and Corrigan, Dower and Moorhead, up towards Jurien Bay, and even as far north as Geraldton here, a straight line of rainfall moving through. Very interesting stuff indeed, and it really is quite cool to look at on the radar and the satellite imagery. and some good storms and showers here and there as well out into the Goldfields region as well, outside of Southern Cross, Kalgoorlie, Coolgardie, and then up towards Menzies and Leonora as well. Much needed rainfall for those locations. Showers will pipe up pretty soon, and I imagine thunderstorms will be starting from about 11 or 12 this morning, or this afternoon rather, across the southwest Capes and into the southwest coastal region, and potential for severe thunderstorms as well, with heavy rainfall either offshore or just onshore for locations such as Walpole, Pemberton, Albany, and those locations down there. Good thunderstorms, like we've mentioned, expected into the wheat belt as well, and some healthy rainfall accumulations as such can be expected. This rainfall accumulations over the next 3 days, you can see between 20 to 50 millimetres expected for some locations on the southwest Capes, with isolated falls slightly higher than that. We wouldn't be surprised if we saw up to 100 millimetres out there, and then solid rainfall through tonight into tomorrow morning, expecting between 30 and 60 millimetres across parts of the eastern wheat belt and then out towards the western goldfields as well, and even extending. Again, those ranchers and those farmers up there, they could really do with some rainfall as well, and certainly as they head into the wettest couple of months, the rainfall will be very welcome up there. Anyways, that is all that I have time for in today's weather forecast. I do apologise that it's really late as well. I slept through an alarm, so it's about an hour late this morning, and again, I do profusely apologise for that. Have a great Sunday, everybody, and I'll catch you all in the next storm.